Hello, and welcome to reading the Robinhood Privacy Policy so that you don't have to. This segment is presented to you by Termageddon.com. We're a privacy policy generator that automatically updates your privacy policy for changes with legislation, and we've helped tens of thousands of customers create their privacy policies and keep them up to date. I did want to note that anything that we talk about today should not be taken as legal advice. If you are looking for legal advice, you should contact an attorney in your area. So what is Robinhood? Robinhood is an online financial app where you can make investments and manage your money. So obviously they collect a lot of data about you, including financial data, which is very sensitive. So it's important to read their privacy policy to understand what they're doing with your data. And really, it's important to read the privacy policy of any service that you sign up for because privacy policies affect your privacy and your rights. So they will explain to you what data is being collected, what is done with that data, who it's being shared with, whether or not it's being sold, and what your rights are. So let's start off by talking about what personal information does Robinhood collect. So Robinhood does collect a lot of personal information. So the first category of information that they collect is identity data. So that means your name, date of birth, your marital status, your social security number, and then photos of your face on government-issued identification documents. They also collect your contact data like your email address, your mailing address, and phone number. They also collect your financial data like your bank account numbers, payment card details, information about your income, your account balances, financial transaction history, credit history, your tax information, and credit scores. When you sign up for a Robinhood account, they will also have you create a username and password. And they'll also collect any data from assessments, what you're interested in, your preferences, any feedback that you give to them, and then also any responses that you have to their surveys. If you do access the app from your phone, you can share your photos and your contacts with Robinhood, but that's only with your permission. So if you don't provide permission to access these things, then they don't have access to it. They also collect additional data from you, like your focus group responses, survey responses, responses to contests, memos, and then also any information that you send to their customer support team. They'll also collect other information, like, for example, additional users on your accounts. So if you share your account with somebody else or give them access to it, they will have that information too. They will also collect usage information like device identifiers, the features or pages that you use, and then also the time and date in which you access the app or access those features. And they'll also collect your transaction information on Robinhood too. They also collect your location data, so where you're located, any credit card rewards information. They do tracking through analytics and advertising, so they will collect any information through tracking technologies too, like your IP address, browser type, internet service provider, device type, operating system, and usage information. They'll collect inferred data, so they may infer information about you. So for example, based on your first name, they may infer your gender, which I think can be very problematic for people who have different names, but that's what they do. They can also obtain information from vendors or business partners. Like, for example, a fraud prevention partner may share information with Robinhood as to whether you're likely to commit fraud. You can also link your financial accounts to Robinhood. So for example, let's say you bank with Chase Bank, you can link that to Robinhood too. They will collect information about your connected services. Like if you sign in via Gmail, they will collect information about that. They'll collect information from publicly available sources. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this. If I'm a customer with a particular app, they can just ask me these questions, and if I want to provide the data, I will. But they do get data from public sources like your contact information or your interactions with social media platforms. Advertising data, so they do run ads, so that will be collected too. Data from other users, so let's say somebody is using Robinhood and my data is on their contact list, and they decide to share that contact list with Robinhood. Robinhood will get access to that. And then lastly, your credit information. So they will gain some information from credit bureaus about your credit score or credit worthiness. So they will obtain that information that way as well. One thing that I want you to keep in mind here, so in this list, it's not stated that Robinhood collects biometric data. I will explain this later, but just keep this in mind as we're going through this video. Now, how does Robinhood actually use your information? So they say they use the information to maintain and provide the Robinhood services, like to process account applications, authenticate your identity, and provide you support. They will also send you transactional or relationship information like confirmations, invoices, notices, customer support responses, security alerts, like somebody signed in from your account, information about transactions as well. They'll also use it to communicate with you about offers, so like send you newsletters, surveys, events, or announcements. This is basically marketing. What I find interesting in this privacy policy is that they don't really use the commonly accepted language that most consumers would understand. So communicate with you about offers, I mean, that seems really innocuous, but then when you read the actual examples of how they use the information, it's clearly for marketing. So I think it'd be a little bit more clear if they said that it was for marketing and wouldn't sugarcoat this way. Same thing, personalized services. This includes customizing content or ads. This basically means they're serving you ads, but they call it personalizing services. Or monitor and improve services. You know, the example that they give is analytics. So, I mean, they could just say analytics instead of sugarcoating it like this. They also use it to facilitate contests, sweepstakes, and promotions, to protect the safety and security of services, the Robinhood business, and other users, to protect or exercise legal claims or defend against legal claims, and then to comply with applicable laws and legal obligations as well. Now, does Robinhood share your personal information? So they say that yes, they do. So they will share information with authorized vendors like fraud prevention vendors, advertising, mailing, tax and accounting, contest fulfillment, web hosting, and analytics. What's really interesting here is that they point out that they may share your biometric data with an identity verification vendor. So from their description, what it seems like is if you call Robinhood to talk to them about anything, they might take a voice print of your voice and share it with a vendor that verifies that this is actually the person that says that they're calling. What's interesting here is that their privacy policy does not say that they collect biometric data in the first place or where they obtain it from or anything like that. So it's interesting that they say that they share this biometric data, but they don't say that they actually collect it. They share data with banking and credit card partners, companies in which you hold securities, any Robinhood affiliates. They might share data in a corporate transaction. So if Robinhood as a company itself is purchased, they would share that data with a buyer. They may share data for legal purposes or with consent. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of companies that say we will share your data with your consent. To me, that's really unclear who you're sharing this data with. How are you obtaining this consent? Can I revoke this consent? That's very unclear. And then they may share the data with other users of services. For example, like if you share your account with somebody else. They also say later on that information could be shared with Google Analytics and advertising providers. So I'm not exactly sure why they don't state this in the paragraph that says who we share your data with. They say it under like cookies and tracking, but they do share the data with Google Analytics and advertising providers as well. Now, this may be an issue because this data is very sensitive. It's financial data. They don't say exactly what data is being shared with these advertising providers. Like, are they sharing my account numbers or my social security number? Or are they just sharing like what pages I clicked on? It's probably just what pages I clicked on or what ads I looked at, but it's pretty unclear. I think for a financial services company, this should definitely be more robust as to exactly what data is being shared with which providers. Now, Robinhood does have separate disclosures when it comes to their financial policies. So they have the privacy policy, and then they have other policies that are concerning the financial data. So they talk about who this data is being shared with. It's being shared for everyday business purposes, such as to process your transactions, maintain your accounts, respond to court orders and legal investigations, or report to credit bureaus. So they say that they do share this information, but you can't limit the sharing. What I think is very confusing here is that I would have personally liked to see who this data is actually shared with. What's interesting too is that later on in their privacy policy, they say that you can unsubscribe from marketing emails. So to me, it would mean that I can stop the sharing for marketing purposes. But here it says that the data is shared for marketing purposes. But then when you look at, can you limit the sharing? It says no. So can I opt out of email marketing or no? It also says that, you can't opt out for sharing with affiliates, even though later on it says that you can't, for affiliates to market to you, it is shared, but you can limit that sharing. So it just seems kind of confusing. Like, who's my information shared with, and can I stop them sharing that information with those people? Not sure. Now, does Robinhood sell your personal information? Also confusing. Not confusing for the regular consumer, but confusing for a privacy lawyer. So Robinhood says that they do not sell information about their users or clients to third parties. But Robinhood does allow third parties to collect information for the purpose of analytics and advertising. We run into this issue time and time again with California Privacy Rights Act that defines sale as selling for monetary gain or anything else of value. So under that privacy law, usually sharing information with third parties for analytics and advertising would be considered a sale of personal information. That's just the basic definition. But here it says that information is not sold. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. Now, Robinhood does provide some privacy rights / choices. So for all users, you can update your account information. You can limit who can see your profile. You can limit whether or not Robinhood has information to your photos or your contact list or your geolocation. You can adjust those settings on your phone. You can unsubscribe from emails and limit sharing between Robinhood affiliates. Again, this is really unclear based on that previous chart that we looked at. And limit how Robinhood discloses information to marketing partners. Also unclear. The previous chart said that you can't limit this, but the privacy policy says that you can. It also says that you can change your cookie consent settings. So this would allow you to opt out of analytics and advertising. Now, what's interesting here is that Robinhood says that residents of Virginia and Colorado have other privacy rights. So they can confirm whether Robinhood is processing your personal information, correct and accurate personal information, portability. So that means you can get a file of all your information. To delete personal information, you can also opt out of sales of personal information, targeted ads, or profiling. And then also, if you exercise any of these rights, Robinhood cannot discriminate you by offering you a different level of service or a different price. Now, you can exercise some privacy rights through the account if you're located in these states by going to the security and privacy menu or by emailing privacy@robinhood.com. Now, another thing that I noticed in this privacy policy is that Robinhood doesn't clearly state how long they keep your data or how they protect your data. So if I'm going on a website and just, reading different pages or going to a blog or something like that, to me, security is maybe not the biggest issue, right? They don't have access to any of my sensitive data, but here they have access to a lot of sensitive data, like my account numbers, social security number, my transaction history, all of these things. So I would have expected in the privacy policy to provide some information as to how this data is being protected. Maybe that's hidden under different pages that I didn't see. But I didn't see that in the privacy policy itself, which I thought was disappointing. I also think it's disappointing that they're only offering these rights to residents of certain states only. So like if I don't want to do business with Robinhood anymore, I may not want them to continue having all of this financial information about me. But it seems like if you're not a resident of these states, you don't have these rights or they're not provided by Robinhood, which I think is kind of disappointing as well. Overall, I think that this privacy policy could have been more clear, definitely could have provided more information, could have provided information that wasn't conflicting with itself, which is a little disappointing to see on a financial services app like this. But yeah, that's the Robinhood privacy policy. Hopefully you found this helpful.